Hello, everyone. You are watching Policy and Tuesday, Know Your Rights. I am Christina Laster, the Director of Policy and Legislation, and I hope that you're all well. I hope that you're all thriving. Hello to America's beautiful children. We love you. Today, well, actually, this week, I have to share that it kind of, started out a little bit interesting. What do I mean? Well, just like the rest of you beautiful folks, I'm an everyday person, and I had some connectivity issues. And so I was like, why is this happening for 2 weeks in a row? It was just like periods of time where I couldn't even log on, and the internet was just not working. So I called Spectrum up. And this is for all of you conspiracy theory buffs. You'll love this intro. So I called up Spectrum, and they said to me, it's not us. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Who is it? If it's not you guys that are turning off the internet and saying that we have an outage, then who is? And they were like, it's the government. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on. I pay for service through you guys, right? So just break this down to me as an everyday customer. And they're like, it's the government, and they can flip the switch when they want, and we have to comply. We don't know their time frame guidelines. We don't know when you're getting your service back. We don't know, but we can give you an adjustment on your bill. I thought that was pretty interesting. And so I thought I'd just share that. But now, you know what? I'm glad to be here. And so today I wanted to start by giving you some helpful information. And I'm going to screen share. And then we're going to go into talking about the letters that here we at National Parents Union, submitted, to the presidential candidate and to the president. So I'm going to break those that letter down, and hopefully you understand how we're fighting and activating our rights as parents. Okay, so here's the helpful information first. And let me screen share. All right, let's see. Let's go right here. So as you can see, this is an article, and what it's talking about is transformational versus incremental change, right? A lot of people hear me talking about this concept, this thought process, which I operate by, which is radical transformational or transformative change. I, as a human being, feel like we all make choices, and it's what you choose to do or what you choose not to do, what you want to do and what you don't want to do. And so I really don't buy into a lot of excuses of, well, we can't teach kids because of XYZ, right? No, if you want to, you can. And so here is an interesting piece of work through Star Commonwealth, just sharing this information. I did not write it, but I find that it lines up with my values and my thought process behind right now change. Okay, so we're going to go look at it. We see right here, they give a background, right, about much being written about transformational change, but very little being applied, which we know to be true. There's a lot of things that are written, equity plans, different things like that, but how much of it is actually showing at the rate of progress and impact and change that we want to see, right? And so they go on to say right here that many in the human services field are focused on incremental behavior changes that focus on people adapting their behavior to fit within a particular system, but does little to get at the deeper character changes, right? And this is a challenge and a conviction for all of us. Like, what can we change right now? How can we change our mentalities and our thought processes to impact those around us who we're looking at for change? Decision makers, whatever they may be, whoever they are human. And so we're looking at the way that transformational change involves more about being than doing, right? And so that is right on. It's spot on. I've shared it in the chat. becoming something new that has never existed before. I always say that this work is a work of, visionaries, right? It requires the visionary to be able to say that it can happen, because a lot of people are fixed with their rigidity, non-flexible. We see that currently today. It's like it is the way that I think it is, and there's no space for a vision to move forward, right? But we find that with that thought process, you get what you always got. So, we want to move and shift our mentalities from thinking that way. And we also want to just start to really challenge other people to do the same thing. I'm sorry, my allergies are really bad, so I keep wiping my nose. And so here it is right here. Um, it occurs in the context of how one thinks about what is happening. In other words, if I continue to think as I've always thought, I will act as I've always acted and get what I've always gotten. Some people refer to that as insanity, doing the same thing over and over, thinking that you're going to get a different result. I've heard that cliche terminology thrown out there. This is just showing exactly what the information that we're looking at says and what their focus is on, and happens to be aligned with my values. There's a Chinese proverb that declares, if I don't change my direction, I will likely end up where I'm headed. Well, that's a reasonable, rational thought. And you can see that over history, even a biblical principle of there's nothing new under the sun, right? The work that you want to see, when you want to see change take place, it requires a different thought than incremental thought, right? What can we do now, today? What do I have the ability, the power, the resource, the skill to do today? And how can I actively progress and move that forward in the changes I want to see? And so I wanted to share that so that it could help you understand that type of thought process, that type of action, that type of mentality. So here they say, when it comes to kids, the transformational change of the direction happens not so much in altering of circumstances or environment, but in helping them change the way they think about what is happening around them. This is true, right? If you can get your mind out, your mentality out, your thought process out, your body naturally has to follow. So if I think to myself, wow, I'm hungry, and I'm going to go and grab me something to eat. Guess what? My body is literally going to follow that thought. I'm going to walk where my body thinks of going, my mind thinks of going. I'm going to go to the kitchen and I'm going to XYZ. That means my feet and my hands are going to follow. If I think, wow, I'm out of laundry detergent, I better get in the car and I better go to the grocery store. Guess what? My body has to follow my thought, right? It's not just that we sit back and just do stuff. Well, some people might think that they do, but there's always a thought that happens first. And if you can capture that thought and intentionally work on doing things in a positive direction, doing things that benefit your neighbor. I talk about this all the time. How can we not just think about us, but the people that are surrounding us, right? We're not on an island. You might want to be, but in all reality, you're not. And I don't care if you live in the most rural place, there's still a community there, right? There's an ecosystem, right? And so think about that. And so we look right here. For true transformation to occur, two key elements are needed, right? I don't want to just throw all this out there and not have some type of resource. The first is a relationship with a trusted adult. And we're talking about kids because they're talking about human services fields that support children. And who can walk alongside them in a normal daily routines using the conflicts and crises that arise as opportunities to look how one is engaging them currently, as well as other ways to looking at some things that could create a different outcome. This, of course, engages the higher prefrontal cortex of the logical brain, requiring one to consider how he or she thinks. It does not merely focus on the reacting side of the survival brain. right? The reaction of the survival part of the brain. So this is proven, right? If we could transform our thoughts, our mentality, we're not living in that um, flight or fight mode, right? We're actually being able to process through challenges. We're actually being able to come up with solutions. But this takes intentional, focused practice. You don't just wake up one day and say, "Oh, I'm going to change the world and everything in it," right? No, it takes that moment by moment, intentional, focused, challenging your thoughts, right? Do I really need that extra donut? I'm talking to myself, y'all, too, okay? I'm not above, having those temptations. Should I really have that cup of coffee if I know my stomach's gonna hurt, right? Simple things like that, all add up to being something big. Because if I have that extra donut, I don't think about it. Like, I'm just going to do it, right? If I have that extra coffee, right? At the end of the day, or maybe sometime in the future, if I gain 5 pounds or my stomach's hurting, or I can't sleep, I'm going to have some kind of consequence because I didn't intentionally stop myself in the beginning. So those are just examples, right? Um, and this is what we're talking about. The second factor necessary is a dream or vision for a different and desired future. This is what I said at the beginning. It does require a visionary. You cannot rely on the fact that we've always done things the same way and something different might just spring up in the future. That's not what we see if we look at it historically, societal wise, economically. We do not see that practicing the same thing over and over and over and over again is going to change the results for right now or in the future, right? It doesn't work that way. We have to be dreamers. We have to be visionaries. We have to think differently and outside of the box, right? A vision that's big enough to take a young person through often painful process of character transformation, okay? And so here is where they leave off. And I shared this in the chat, like I said. Of course, the very systems that care for young people are in need of the same sort of transformation. Um, you know, Incremental change doesn't yield anything. It's only when you change the script, the very way by which you look at the problem, that transformation can begin to happen. And so, again, you can come over here and look at the stuff to read about transformational principles for working with troubled youth. And you know what? I think that this is beyond just working with troubled youth. I think that this is about transforming adults, right? Some people say that adults are stuck in their ways. I happen to believe that we're all in process and that any given moment a person can transform and change. It's if they want to, if they participate in their own transformation, in their own change, in their own intentionally capturing bad thoughts, intentionally capturing bad mentalities, practices that follow those mentalities, and moving in the different direction. It may not be comfortable, it may not feel familiar, but is absolutely necessary if we want to see things progress and change, or we're going to continue to get what we've always gotten. And so I hope that that helps as a starting point to give you just some inspiration and some direction on where you can shift your mentalities, your efforts, and your energy, your thoughts, and intentionally capturing those bad thoughts, those bad practices that haven't led you into the type of situations you want to be in, but that you feel are mundane, like you're a hamster on a wheel, right? We have to change our behavior. So here's a quote from Maya Angelou: "Square your shoulders to your responsibilities, hold fast to the ideals of Star Commonwealth, and with love and faith, you will ride victoriously the whirlwind that is sweeping us to a higher civilization." And so that's a beautiful quote that she sent to them. And I just wanted to share that. All right. So, again, I said that we were going to be going through the letter. If you weren't aware of the letter, I'm just going to take some time and inform you exactly of what I'm talking about so that you won't be confused. Sorry. I do want you to know about our upcoming town hall. If you haven't registered, please go to nationalparentsunion.org, register for that upcoming town hall, November 5th. It's going to be exciting. Hashtag Parent Power 2020, and so we are, again, lifting the authentic voice of us, the everyday parents, and just really, really, really honing in to create the environment of change. I talked to you about transformational versus incremental change. Incremental change has not proven to produce results. And so I shared that information in the chat. And now I will go to the letters. Remember, if you have any questions, you can always drop them in the comment field. I'm more than glad to go back and answer them. Hello, everyone that's already in the comment field. I see you there. And so I'm going to start to share the tab. All right. So here's our website. Just in case, you guys have not navigated through our mission statement, who we are, what we stand for, I think that you should really take the opportunity to do that. I know that you enjoy watching our shows and we enjoy offering you this content, but really, if you want to know what our current work is and what we're doing and how to join, right? Membership's free. You can definitely go to our website, and I'm going to drop that in the chat. You see it streaming at the bottom. And so right here, you can also see that there's some tabs. Okay, so I just entered that information into the chat. Now, here's some tabs, and what we want to look at is election 2020 letters, right? You can see home, we have a Bill of Rights, Family Bill of Rights, our town hall meeting, that's where you're going to want to register. Statement of values, membership applications, who are the leaderships, what are we doing, right? Every Family Votes campaign, definitely check that out, and the legislative corner. But today, we're going to go to election 2020 letters. All right. So one thing that we noticed, and I'm sure you all noticed it too, was that we didn't hear very much with regards to the presidential debates about education, right? That is very concerning to me because I believe, and most of you that are watching believe, that education should be prioritized. It is a mold to freedom from oppression. We do not need an uneducated populace, right? We need to be able to make sure that our children can read and write. They're lifelong learners and that they're learning vital information, vital skills. It was interesting that yesterday my daughter was on a student-led piano, and I was so inspired by all of the youth and just everything they were saying. And something really hit me when my daughter was asked a question. She said, instead of fighting with your fists, you can be educated and fight back with information. Now that struck me, even though I teach her these concepts, but it really, really struck me as, wow, she gets it, right? 14, she gets it. And all of the rest of the young children on there beautifully said things, truth, speaking truth to power. And, I was like, wow, they get it. And that is essential, right? Being able to read, being able to write, having a high quality public education, right? That is what we fight for here. And so we have the letters to address what we didn't hear, right? And I'm going to open it up. And you can go here and you are able to click to download. We sent the same letter, right, to both former Vice President Joe Biden and current President Donald Trump. And so I wanted to give you a view of what that looks like. Let me stop sharing the actual website and I will start sharing the letter. And I will break it down. Thank you guys for your patience. I'm not as tech savvy as I would like to be. but I appreciate your patience. Okay, here we go. Where am I at? Let's see. Oh, right here. All right, so let me make that a little bit bigger. And as you can see, we have the letter. Let me make sure that you guys are seeing the right view. Let me see. Yes. Okay. I see that I'm there and the letter is there. So we're good. Okay, so as you can see, we have the letter addressed, right? It says the date. Okay. So if anybody's wondering when we made these letters public and when we issued them, right here. And so we say who we are. National Parents Union is a network of highly effective parent organizations and grassroots activists across the country that are united behind a set of common goals and principles to channel the power of parents. Our family advocates improve the quality of life for children across the United States and define the education narrative and conversation. You can see here that our network includes all 50 states. And so, including Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico, you can go in the letter. It's made public. You can look at all of this information. We delineate what is it that we're talking about. We're talking about access to a high quality education, that it must be a civil right. Every child should have the right to a high quality, equitable, world class, globally recognized education. We hear a lot of talk about, oh, well, our school offers a globally competitive education. Really? Because the last time I checked, the nation's compared to other nations not doing so hot. Okay. And so are they really offering your child a globally competitive education? I don't think so. So we want a globally recognized education, right? World class. To be clear, we're not using the term civil right as a metaphor, and we're not. We're serious. It's not just some cliche word like all kids. You hear about all kids all the time, but does it really include all kids, right? It leaves you to wander and ponder. When you hear terminology, equity, is it really equitable? Leaves you to kind of ponder and wonder, like, who are you guys talking about? Because I know you're not talking about my kid, right? And I know a whole bunch of other kids you're probably not including in that either. So we really are very clear that we're not using this terminology, civil rights, as a metaphor. We believe that the time has come to translate kids first. Remember, I told you about that kids first and all kids statements that are broadly shared, from a political soundbite into an actionable civil right for every public school parent and student in America. And to that end, you guys, this is what we fight for. Okay. So we start to talk about how, there are all of these discussions ensuing about reimagining public education and school reopenings, but there is a vital need to distinguish between an actionable civil right and the already existing compulsory education laws. So for you guys that have been watching over a period of time, I often talk about compulsory attendance or compulsory education laws that mandate a certain type of school structure, say for instance, traditional public school, charter schools, private school, whatever. They basically delineate what it is that your child should be receiving as far as hours, as far as standards, and as far as approved places, basically, for lack of better words, where your kids can receive that type of education, right? So you're talking about private school, then that's your choice. But private schools still have to teach a certain amount of hours and a certain amount of content. What are those content subject areas? Math, English language arts, science, history, whatever that may be. Now, you can definitely pay for a private education if that's what you choose, and the government doesn't have the right to tell you that you can't. You can definitely choose to homeschool if that's what you choose. In some states, you have to prove your homeschooling desire by filling out a private school affidavit or an intent to privately educate or intent to homeschool, right? So that's the compulsory education laws. They also dictate education codes. and policies therein. We're not going to really break that down. I will spend another day breaking down compulsory education laws. If you want, put it in the chat and I can definitely delineate what that means. I can talk to you about how they basically the compulsory education laws really are the umbrella under which Ed Code and all the other things operate, such as ADA, average daily attending student, funding, different things like that, funding formulas, and how those all tie in. But I'm not going to really spend time on that today. Here is what we're saying. And this is what we didn't hear them talking about. No one has really, at the leadership level and at the presidential debates, delineated what their K through 12 education plan is going to look like. And we know right now it's a disaster. And so we're talking about a high quality education, hasn't been fully realized. We realize that the measurable outcomes that are already existing due to mandates in public education have not been adequate, even though some places say they're adequate. Are they really? Right? You can look to your left and your right, and you see that no, they're not adequate. Children are being failed at a dismal rate. We need to rethink and reimagine, and like I talked about earlier, not incrementally, transformatively, right? We're not looking to have things trickle down and go back to the status quo and go back to the norm. So anyway, here is the background information. As schools reopen, leaders like yourself will face the choice to either rebuild the status quo ante with all of its structural issues, ranging from inadequate quality instruction, inequity, and institutional racism, or to fully and actually reimagine it for our children, especially traditionally ill-served and left behind low-income children and children of color. So we're urging an endorsement of a legal right to a high-quality public education for every child in America, so that it can create a legal North Star to guide the reopening process. All right, so we go on to talk about, and we share some data. Definitely check that out. Again, if you go to our website, you can see our poll information, join, and you can get further content and access to further content, trainings around the data or around the civil right, whatever we offer to our members. So we also believe, and here is it going to go into that, right? We talk about the sovereignty of parent, family, and community roles. We talk about us being the best decision makers to influence education policy, because we're ultimately responsible for the lives and livelihood of our children, right? And so this is a great thing to look at and really digest and utilize in your discussions, because we need to be shifting the education landscape if we want to see it acknowledge, first of all, the type of education that we want, and do so in a way that's not going to take generations to achieve, right? We're no longer in 2020. We are demanding and saying, and I'm speaking me as a parent, enough with bad education, enough with setting our children up for generational, perpetual, and cyclical failure. Enough of that mess, right? And so we are clear, though, that although this is our belief and our mission, history has proven an alternate path and agenda when it comes to allowing Black and Brown parents an authentic voice and consideration regarding their children's educations. In order to move forward, remember I was talking about that transformational versus incremental change. In the direction of progress and change, the National Parents Union highly recommends the following courses of action be taken regarding education policy. So you can see our formal recommendations and actions that we would like to see: learning outcomes, representation of authentic parent voice, an appropriate appointment of the U.S. Department Secretary of Education. Here we delineate that it is reflective of, but not limited to, okay, cultural congruence with Black and Brown population, a background and proven track record in education. We don't want someone coming in and running experiments. That's not what we want. We need to see that they've historically been able to accomplish what moving forward we're going to ask them to accomplish at a more progressive rate, not at a slow, trickle down. I'm going to wait 10 years for this to happen. The kids in that generation already be failed. No, stop it, knock it off, right? These to reflect the inclusion of a diverse background of parents from all walks of life and proven background, also track record in working with these diverse groups of parents on policies and decision making. Have you been included? Because the last time I checked, for the most part, parents feel like they're not included and their voices are not respected, not valued, not a part of the decision making processes. And when we do give recommendations, it's like they take a piece of it, not all of it. There's these excuses and meetings to meet again. Enough of that, right? We're saying enough. And so here is funding demands. Fully funded special education, right? We have an area for that. Physical education and nutrition guidelines, right? What are those going to look like? We don't want our children having to attend, because compulsory education mandates attendance, school attendance, some type of school. I discussed that in the beginning. And those that qualify for free and reduced lunch getting junk. No way. That is inhumane to me. How can you expect the child to be at their highest potential when you're giving them a whole bunch of processed, sugary foods, right? We want our kids to have fresh fruits and vegetables. We don't want them having canned goods that are sugary. You know, I had a lot of parents in 1 year's time say, wow, Christina, my child's really having some dental challenges, right? I'm noticing that we're having to go from the dentist to the orthodontist. Didn't have this issue, and I have older kids in the past. What happened? I said, well, I'll tell you what happened. Look at how the nutrition, physical education and nutrition guidelines have shifted. Look at what the children are being offered as far as meals. And this is so serious that you can even check this information out with the American Heart Association and Diabetic Association. There are so many children that are suffering from juvenile diabetes, and that is lifelong debilitating, right? It affects a lot your vision. It affects more than just, you being obese or having obesity. They're not every child with juvenile diabetes is obese. I will tell you that that is a myth. Not every diabetic person is obese. So you need to be looking for what is the root cause, right? What is the root cause? Is it because every day of that school year, your child was given a cinnamon roll and a strawberry and chocolate milk? That's not breakfast. So talking about whole foods and just talking about that, we definitely added that in. Teacher and leadership training, right? Um, you know, looking at that. College, career, and vocational education pathways, reflective of, but not limited to, right? You need to be meeting the needs of the demographic per region. We don't want to bring in something that's not achievable or attainable. Like, that's like me sitting across the street, and this is a bad example, but I'm going to use it, from a mansion when I'm in a tent, right? And then people saying, well, if you just, reach a little further, you'll be able to get that mansion one day. But that's not helping me right now if I'm in a tent. So, just thinking along those lines of what can we do to actually be realistic, pragmatic, reasonable. Realistic and reasonable means pragmatic, right? When we're asking for and looking at the ways of operating under transformational change, right now change. Not let's hurry up and wait, not let's hurry up and have the meeting to meet again. What can we change today and accomplish for the future, right? That is not going to look like what we are used to being comfortable with. I haven't never been comfortable with it. I realize that some people may have noticed that there was a problem, but not really fully know what that problem was, but had levels of discomfort, right? Like something's just not right. Right. Knowing that children are graduating from high school, not able to read or write past a third or fourth grade level, that's not setting them up for life. Okay. So that should make people feel uncomfortable. We need to challenge that. School safety guidelines, right? We talked about that. Fully funded and respected parent choices and options, reflective of but not limited to. Homeschooling, your right to homeschool should be protected. But also, we recognize that the public tax dollar that is spent for education should fund education. It should go to its intended purposes. Why are homeschoolers being eliminated in from eliminated, sorry, from funding? Like, if I decide that I want to homeschool because that's the best way to educate my child, and the state has mandated regulations with regards to education standards, content, hours, why isn't that funded again? I don't know. And so we're really pushing for that. Public charter schools, federal funds, 88 allocated to each pupil to follow that pupil, whatever school his or her parents deem appropriate, right? I don't want my child to be stuck in an environment that's not conducive to their growth, to their social and emotional developmental growth, or to their learning. And I want to see outcomes, right? We as parents demand outcomes. What are the outcomes? If you have funding, it needs to go to its intended purpose, and we need to see outcomes. And we're not talking about low outcomes, right? We're not talking about, oh, we're going to shift this, whatever it may be, delineated on the funding formula in the plan. We're going to move this 1 percentage point a year. No, that's not the outcomes that we want to see. We want to see real percentages, measurable outcomes, and the highest percent possible. We want to see that if 67% of Black kids, which this is the facts in the state that I'm in California, 67% of the Black children statewide can't read or write at grade level, and 80% can't do math at grade level. And you want me to watch that trickle down to 79% for math next year and 66.5 next year reading and writing? No way, knock it off. Either you're going to teach them or you're not. And if you're not, then our options shouldn't be opposed and attacked, right? Because we're taking our kids literally somewhere that people want to teach them. And so we talk about transformational change. We're talking about you, if you're an educator, intentionally dedicating your time to educate children, right? We don't care about special interests. We care about the oppositions of special interests, but our special interest is our children, right? And if we're mandated to have them in a structured learning program, whatever it may be, then we need to see some progress rates of change, and we do not want the same thing that we've already known that we've gotten. And so we talk about our goal again here, and all of the signatures from all of the delegates across the nation. Here you will see our statement. The National Parents Union has always stood with and continues to stand with Black families, brown families, and families at the margins. We denounce any thought of supremacy or superiority, and view it as a social, moral, and ethical dilemma that plagues societies, hindering generational change and progress. Education is a mode to freedom from oppression and and access to a high quality public education should be a priority. And like I said at the beginning, that is why we are having this discussion today, because we realized that it was not talked about from the president at the presidential debates. And we are dictating that narrative of what we would like to see happening in the education landscape. So I just wanted you guys to see that. Definitely go and check it out on the website. I hope that helps. Again, you have been watching Know Your Rights, Policy and Legislation Breakdown Tuesday. I will be back for Managing Day-to-Day with me and National Parents Union on Thursday. And you can definitely be watching. We have plenty of shows that air throughout the day, something for everybody there. I hope that you're all well. I hope that you thrive. Goodbye to America's beautiful children. We love you. And we will see you again on Thursday. Me, but you can check out other people and their shows during the day, and it airs every day of the week, Monday through Friday. And there's a dad to dad show that comes on Saturdays for you dads out there, and so definitely check that out. But we'll see you again. Bye bye. Take care.